Hey guys, I just got back from seeing Avengers Endgame, and I just wanted to give my thoughts on the movie while they were still fresh in my mind. Um, the movie was great. Um, I don't think there's much they could have really improved on it. It was filmed great. The acting was great. There were a lot of surprises that caught me off guard. Some stuff that full blown had me hollering in the in the front row of the cinema. Um, it was surprising because Infinity War came out so well, and Thanos was such a great villain that I didn't know how they were going to top it. But they did. If I had to score it, I definitely would give it a 10 out of 10. Music, tension. There was some humor in it. Some of it was very well placed, some of it wasn't. Uh, but like, I guess I'll explain it better when I get to spoilers. I'm trying to keep spoilers out for right now. Um, in Storyline, it's pretty obvious to a point. Um, they found a few ways to mix it up. I mean, the movie starts pretty sad considering it started off, I think, 3 weeks after Infinity War. Um, then it kind of, you know, things happen, gave him a little spark of hope, and then the final act was pretty out of this world. Um, the thing about this movie is it was what a little over a decade in the making. I think Iron Man 1 came out 11 years ago, somewhere around there. Um, but honestly, they could stop all the Marvel movies here if they really wanted to. With the way it ended, it was very final. But they also left some things up in the air where they can branch out, make more movies. Um, if anybody hasn't seen the movie, I recommend you go see it, and I also recommend you stop this video because now I'm gonna start talking spoilers. Okay, so again, spoiler warning. Movie opened up and it was really dark. It actually started off with Hawkeye uh, teaching his daughter a little archery while his family was having a picnic in the background. Um, and before he knows it, they get dusted. He looks around, they're gone, and he starts freaking out. And that's the opening credits. Um, so the first part of the movie surprised me is how they started it. It felt super fast. Um, because immediately as soon as the movie starts, Tony's up about to die. He's been trapped for 3 weeks with Nebula inside a fucking ship. Sorry for the language. Um, he gets found by Captain Marvel. I guess the Beeper contacted Captain Marvel. She showed up on Earth, asked where Fury was, found out what happened, went and found him, brought him home. He was recovering. He was so malnourished. He was super skinny. They had him on IV. He was all messed up. But Captain Marvel, being the baddest that she is, was like, "Come here, y'all need to stop complaining. Let's just go find Thanos, get these Infinity Stones back, bring everybody back." Um, Unfortunately, they had no way of finding Thanos. Then all of a sudden, they heard about. They talked to Nebula about what he said he was going to do after he completed this plan, talking about going to the garden. They thought it was something he was going to make. So they found out that there was a huge cosmic blast on another planet, similar to the one that happened on Earth when he snapped his fingers. So they go and find him. They find him. He's all messed up. He's limping. He's like half torched. They're trying to figure out what happened to him. Uh, they beat his ass bad. Um, Captain Marvel comes through the ceiling, chokes him up. Banner comes through the floor with the Hulkbuster, grabs him up. Uh, Cap, Thor, they all grab him, and they find out that he The reason there was another cosmic blast is because he used the Infinity Stones to destroy the Infinity Stones. He said once he, torched half the universe, he didn't really need them again. It was just a temptation. And also, anybody trying to undo what he did could, if he didn't get rid of him. So everybody feels defeated, and Thor cuts his head off. And they're like, "Why'd you do that?" He's like, "I aimed for the head." And that was the first bit of dark comedy. Then it fast forwards 5 years, which is another thing I didn't know they were gonna do. Steve Rogers, aka Cap, is running a group trying to get people to accustom to the new reality. 5 years after half the population's dead, everybody's in a readjustment period. It's got some people messed up. Some people are scared to rejoin the world. They're miss their loved ones. Um, then it shows the Lang van that they had from Ant-Man, and a rat runs over the machine that sent Scott to the quantum realm, and he pops out. Hasn't aged a day. He's freaking out. Doesn't know what happened. Realizes something went down. Um, Tries to ask people what happened, and everybody's looking at him with just pain all over their face. He runs into a kid on a bike and is just like, "What happened here?" And this kid just looks at him like he's about to ball out. So Scott's walking around and he finds a memorial that just says "The Vanished," and it's all the names of everybody that disappeared. There's hundreds and hundreds of hundreds of monoliths, kind of. It was kind of like the Vietnam Wall, where they just had names carved into it, but instead of a wall, it was pillars. And he ends up looking for his daughter's name. He starts freaking out. Then he finds his own name. So everybody thought he died. He goes home. He finds his daughter. His daughter damn near has a panic attack. Then it goes to Natasha. She's organizing the Avengers. What's left? She's got Rocket and Nebula on another planet. She's got sorry, I'm terrible. I see her and I just see Michonne, the warrior from Wakanda. I forget her actual name. Um, she's investigating some sort of tectonic distortion down under the ocean. Captain Marvel is trying to help other planets that lost half their population, trying to figure out society. And as everybody cuts the transmissions with her, all that's left is her and Brody, War Machine, and he's talking about how a cartel, like a good 30 people, all got killed before they could even draw their weapons. And I guess they realized that it's Barton. I guess after losing his family, he kind of lost it. After she cuts out with Rhodey, saying to try and find Barton, um, Steve shows up, starts talking to Natasha, trying to ask her why she's still doing this after all this time. She said she didn't have anything. She didn't have a family. Shield gave her one, and she kind of has to carry on the legacy. That was one of the first emotional moments. Like Steve walks in when she's about to cry. Then they get, the doorbell ringing, and it's Scott trying to figure out what's going on. They all thought Scott was dead, so to see him, Steve immediately thinks it's a recording, and they're like, "No, it's the front door." And he explains how he was in the quantum realm, and in the quantum realm, everything works differently. He was there. They said he was gone for 5 years. To him, it was 5 hours. So he tries to figure out if there's some way they can, manipulate the quantum realm to try and go back in time and fix what happened. So they go find the smartest person they know, and they go find Tony Stark. Except now, after everything that happened, Tony finally settled down in the little cabin in the woods. Him and Pepper, they have a daughter. This is the first part that really got me emotional. Just seeing Tony with a little girl. He walks out, tries to find her, and she's in a tent with an Iron Man mask on. and she was adorable. She was, I don't know who the other actress was, but she was so cute. Um, Steve, Scott, Natasha roll up. Immediately, Tony knows something's up, so they try talking to him about it, and he explains that that's just the quantum mechanics won't work, that they'll end up killing themselves or worse, just like screwing the timeline. So he tells them that he's not going to help them. How he would love to get everybody back, especially Peter, because he blamed himself for losing the kid. Um, but he can't give up what he has now. His marriage to Pepper, his daughter. So they go to the next person. They said they need somebody with a big brain, and they reveal my boy the Hulk, aka the Professor. Um, Bruce Banner fused himself with the Hulk, so he's Hulk all the time, but he has the brain of Bruce Banner, brains and brawn. And he's sitting there in a big ass shirt, fucking. Oh, sorry, more swears. Um, Eating food. Kids come up, want his picture. He takes pictures, posing with them. Ant-Man gets jealous. It's pretty funny. But Tony decides he wants to help too. Try and save everybody that's gone. Something doesn't work out. He was smart, but I guess he just wasn't smart enough. They try to send Scott back in time a week, and every time he comes back, his age is different. Like he got younger, then he got older, then he got young again, and Ant Man, he says stupid things. So after they get him back to his normal age, he's like, somebody peed in my pants. I don't know if it was old me or young me. Really funny. Um, they decide to call it quits, and while they're calling it quits, it flashes back to Tony, and Tony figures it out. He figures out how to manipulate the quantum realm on his own, kind of by accident. He didn't think it was gonna work, but as he's doing it, his daughter sees it, and he keeps thinking to himself, he can't not do it. Like he can't do it and lose his daughter. But he sees the picture of Peter, and it's just like he's got to do something. So the next day, they're still trying to figure it out. He drives. He drives to the Avengers location, and basically tells Tony he cracked it, and gives him a device to help him navigate. So they all end up working together, but he knows they're gonna need everybody, so they start gathering the team together. Thor. Oh man, Thor. Oh, Thor hit rock bottom. Um, they find Thor. They go to New Asgard. Any Asgardian that's left, it's actually being run by Valkyrie, and she says they only see Thor maybe once a month to restock on supplies. Except it's like barrels and barrels of beer. Um, so they roll into Thor's house, and he's complaining about his cable, and he's playing Fortnite. Oh my god! And he's fat. Um, he spiraled out. His hair is long and nasty dreads. He's got a beer gut. He's not muscular at all. Um, and then he's got Korg and Meek living with him. It was nice to see Korg, but it's kind of funny. He ends up talking smack to some little kid on the headphones that he's playing Fortnite with. Uh, Thor didn't want to help. He was done. He gave up going after Thanos. I guess part of him was still traumatized from losing to Thanos, but they end up talking him into going for more booze, I guess. Um, they get Rocket and Nebula to come help. Obviously, War Machine's gonna help. Um, so they figure out the best thing they can do is to go back in time and get the stones out of the timeline. And because of the way their quantum mechanics works, it doesn't really affect their timeline as much because what becomes them going to the past is now their present, where they came from would now be their past. So it's weird. The way they explain it is interesting, but not entirely important. They're gonna go back and get the Infinity Stones. So they pick a bunch of different times to go back to. They go back to New York during the invasion because there were 3 Infinity Stones in New York at the time: the Time Stone, the Space Stone, and the Mind Stone, the Scepter, the Tesseract, and the Time Stone was with the Sorcerer Supreme. Um, for that, they send Tony, they send Bruce, and they send Cap and Scott. So it's those four going there. They send Nebula, War Machine, Hawkeye, and Black Widow to. They send them back in time to the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy, where Star Lord found the Power Stone, and while two people are doing that, the other two are going to go to Vormir and try to get the Soul Stone. Um, and then everybody else, which was the Ether. Duh. They went back to Thor: Dark World. It was Thor and Rocket. That was interesting. So it flashes back between all three timelines. The first one being uh, New York. They all show up. Hulk sees himself throwing people around. It actually redoes the scene where it pans by all the Avengers when they first come together. This is pretty cool. You see Hulk smashing around Chitauri, and they tell Banner you're gonna have to smash some stuff and stay on the low. So he takes off this tank top he's got on, and he just grabs a car, tosses it, grabs a bike, tosses it. Like he doesn't want to smash anymore. But he ends up jumping off, and he goes finds the Sorcerer Supreme, which is the Sorcerer Supreme from the beginning of Doctor Strange, not Doctor Strange himself. This is, I guess, 5 years beforehand. And she makes a reference. She's like, "You're here too soon." Um, he tells her that he needs the Time Stone. She says no. Um, she actually pushes the Bruce Banner soul out of the Hulk, and Hulk passes out. I'm gonna go a little out of order here. I'm just gonna tell you what happened with each person because it was bouncing around. Like from here, it went back to Cap, Scott, and Iron Man. Then it went back to Vormir. It was a mess. What happened with Bruce was she basically explained that she couldn't give him the Time Stone. So they took the Time Stone while there is the timeline. By giving him the Time Stone where it's supposed to be, it, sorry about that, Skip, guys. I had a knock on my door. I had to go answer real quick. All right, back to what I was saying. So there was the main timeline. By getting rid of the 6 stones at any point in time, it would create a branch in the timeline. So if she gave away the Time Stone, which was the Sorcerer's ultimate weapon, they would be unable to protect the realm from certain evils along the timeline, which could cause a destroyed future. While it would be good for their timeline, it would be good for an alternate reality, and she couldn't allow that. So she refused to give him the Time Stone. He basically explained that if that's the case, why did Doctor Strange give up the Time Stone to Thanos? Basically, bring them to where they are now. And upon hearing that, she realizes that he must have known something or had a reason for doing it because Strange is supposed to be the greatest Sorcerer Supreme. So she ends up giving Bruce the Time Stone only after he promises that after they're done using the stones, they will return them to their spot in time. We go over to Cap, Iron Man, Scott. This was actually pretty cool how they did this. They go into the Avengers Tower at the point where they beat Loki and they arrest him. This is all stuff we didn't see in the original movie because it skipped ahead. But basically, Shield agents come in, box up the staff. They take the staff. They box up the Tesseract. Tony takes the Tesseract. Tony, Scott are in that room. Steve is waiting for the scepter. Tony basically, flicks Scott onto his past self, and they're trying to get the Tesseract. Sorry, trying to just organize my thoughts. First cool thing that happened. They kind of mimic the elevator scene from Captain America 2. Captain America goes in the elevator full of all the same dudes, and I thought he was gonna fight them. I thought he was just gonna kick their butts, take the scepter. Nope, he tricks them. He tells them that their leader wants him to take the scepter. Mind you, they just got off the phone with their leader. They didn't say anything about it. But then he whispers to them, "Hail Hydra!" So they think he's a actual Hydra agent. They give him the scepter. He leaves. He um, when Tony and Scott were trying to get the Tesseract, they kind of messed up. They get to the bottom floor, and Hydra ends up trying to take the Tesseract from Tony, past Tony. Um, Scott goes inside his arc reactor and pops a battery out that causes his heart to short circuit. So he's on the ground, like convulsing, and future Tony, or present Tony, takes the Tesseract. As he's leaving, Hulk, who couldn't take the elevator because he's too big, took the stairs and blows through the door, sending Tony flying and knocking him out. The Tesseract slides out. Loki gets the Tesseract. Oh no. The Loki they had caught now used the Tesseract to teleport away, which didn't happen in the original timeline. So who knows where that's going to eventually lead. Steve hears that Loki got away with the Tesseract and ends up running into himself. And past Steve thinks that future Steve is him. And they end up fighting. And it's pretty funny because past Steve gets the upper hand and makes a joke of, I can do this all day. And future Steve is exhausted already, dealing with himself. He's like, I know. And they're going back and forth, and they're like rolling around on the ground. And future Steve tells past Steve, Bucky's still alive. And that makes him hesitate. And future Steve knocks him out. Takes the scepter, goes. He meets up with Scott and Tony. They tell him they messed up. There's nothing they can do. They only had enough Pym particles to do one trip there, one trip back. So Tony, being the genius that he is, comes up with a backup plan. Basically, he remembers an idea, a place where there was the Tesseract and Pym particles at the same time. It was an old military base back in the 60s or 70s, back before Captain America became Captain America. So they use the last of their Pym particles to go back. So they send Scott back to the present, and they end up on a military base. On this military base, they both go in disguise. One's going after the Pym particles, one's going after the Tesseract. Tony finds the Tesseract, uses an Iron Man glove to cut it out of the vault. On his way out, he runs into his dad. At first, he's nervous, but he ends up smooth talking his dad into walking out with him, and they're talking back and forth. Cuts back to Steve, and he makes a false phone call about a glowing package. I guess it was some kind of nuclear element for Dr. Pym, and that nobody can touch it because they're getting sick. As he's gone, he sneaks into the lab, steals some Pym particles. On his way out, he hears that somebody spotted them, basically saying that they saw two people they didn't recognize in the base. So he hides in an office. Turns out he hides in Peggy's office, and she has a picture of him on her desk. And he looks through the window and he sees her, and he has this really cute moment of like wishing he could stay with her. He ends up leaving. He meets up with Tony outside. Tony's still talking to his dad, talking about how his mother's pregnant. And they have a real nice heart to heart. I mean, it means more to Tony than it does to his dad, but still nice. So they end up getting the Tesseract and heading back. Now we're gonna go over to Thor and Rocket. They go back to right before Thor's mother died. That day, and Jane has the ether inside of her. They bring a device to extract the ether. So Rocket wants Thor, who's basically a drunk and can barely think for himself, to woo Jane while he takes the ether. But he's distracted. He sees his mother. All he cares about is talking to his mother and trying to stop her from dying. Rocket tries to snap him out of it, and at first it seems like he's good to go. Then Rocket, takes his focus off Thor, and Thor leaves. So Rocket ends up going in and basically stalking Jay until he can steal the ether. Thor, on the other hand, runs into his mother, and this is the second time that they had a really, really strong emotional scene. Um, Thor, Thor's mother immediately realizes that that's not her Thor, and is quickly able to realize that he's from the future. I mean, she was raised by witches. She makes a point of it. Um, I mean, like I said, his hair's grown out. He looks just worn down. His eyes a different color now. Uh, he's got the beer gut, and she explains to him how he may have messed up and he failed because Thor tells her what they lost, but how he acts after that, that's on him. How the best thing he can do is be the best version, his best version of himself, and that kind of snaps him out of his funk. He tries to tell her about her future, and she shuts him down. No, Rocket shows up getting chased by guards with the ether. He's like, "I got the thing. Let's get out of here." As they go to leave, Thor does something cool. He calls Mjolnir, and Mjolnir comes, and he's just like, he was just really happy because he's like, "I'm still worthy," and he takes the hammer with him when they leave. That was the first thing they did that was really really cool that stuck out to me. Um, then we go to the guys in space. I'm sorry, this scene was hilarious. So we've got Nebula and War Machine on the planet with Quill. They play the same song that Quill was dancing to when that whole scene, and they see this while they're hiding, and they're like, War Machine looks like Nebula, so he's an idiot. And she's like, yeah. So as he's dancing, he spins. He's dancing, he spins, does this little spin move before he walks into the vault, and War Machine just knocks him out, clean and cold. So they just walk in the vault. Nebula reaches in, grabs a stone, they bounce out. Except something terrible happens. It flashes over to Thanos' ship in the past, where Nebula, you remember how back then Nebula was super loyal to Thanos, all she cared about was pleasing him. This is before even the whole thing were running. And Gamora is still there. Gamora being, she has her issues with Thanos, but she's still doing what he says. And he's trying to send them to go get the Infinity Stones. Except they realize that somebody else is on Nebula's neural network. It's the future Nebula. And she's able to see what future Nebula sees and see all of future Nebula's memories. So they hack into old Nebula's brain and use her to learn everything they can about future Nebula and the Avengers. So they learn about their plan, they learn about the Infinity Stones. It gets all messed up. Well, after War Machine and her grab the Infinity Stone, War Machine goes back. Nebula gets stuck there because they use the connection to incapacitate her. She tries to contact somebody and tell them, Thanos knows. Get get out of here. Forget me. They capture her, blow away her ship, torture her, start taking her apart. And Nebula old Nebula, still loyal to Thanos, disguises herself as new Nebula with parts that only new Nebula had, and uses it to basically send herself back in time, or in this case, to the future. Um, so that's what happens with those two. Sorry for that trip again. Um, the other crew was the next emotional moment. Um, it was Hawkeye and Black Widow, and they were on Vormir. Um, they find the mountain where the Soul Stone's supposed to be, and they run into the Red Skull. He already knows who they are. He knows who their parents are, and explains how it's his job to know who's coming for the stone. Same thing he did in Infinity War. And when he brings them to the altar, he tells them the same thing. They have to sacrifice something that they love. Except both of these idiots, they want to sacrifice themselves and send the other person back. Natasha wants to do it for Clint because she never had anything. She thinks it's a good way to die. She wants to do it for the team, for the world. Clint wants to do it for his family. He wants to do it for that. It's a really, really messed up scene. Um, they both try running off the edge. They both start attacking each other, shooting each other, blowing each other away, trying to stop each other from jumping off. Clint finally jumps off. Nat literally jumps off with him and attaches a grappling hook to him, and it attaches to the wall. And he actually catches her as the wire catches him, and he just tells her that she sucks. And this was the first part that really surprised me with this movie. After they exchange a quick heart to heart and look at each other, Natasha kicks off the wall and she falls to her death. Uh, that scene, that scene got me. Uh, I damn near started crying, and I did not want to see Black Widow die. But as soon as she falls, sky opens up, and Clint wakes up in that same weird world that Thanos was in, and he has his soul stone. He goes back. That's the end. That's the end of them gathering the stones. So they go back. Everybody shows up at the same time, and as soon as they get back, Clint just collapses in tears, and he tells everybody what happened to Natasha. Um, and everybody else really gets hit with it. Bruce is on his knees. Like at first, they're like, "Oh, we'll just use the stones to bring it back," but they end up realizing that they can't undo that. So they take the stones, they go, and Tony starts making a new gauntlet for the stones. Um, while they're doing that, Nebula, past Nebula, who snuck to the future, starts fucking with the time machine while nobody's looking, messing with the time machine. They finish the gauntlet, they put the stones in it. They're trying to figure out who's gonna, do the snap that brings everybody back, and nobody can do it because with how much damage it takes to use all the stones, it's likely to kill whoever does it. Thor wants to do it because he thinks, as the god of thunder, he can take anything. And he's after his talk with his mom, he's like really high strung. I mean, he has Mjolnir back. He's ready to go. But Banner, he's like, it has to be me. He's the toughest. He has a high regeneration ability, and the power from the stones is similar to gamma radiation. He even says it's like he was made for that. So the gauntlet opens up and can even fit his hand. And as soon as he puts it on, the power from the stones rushes into him, and he's got him on his knees because it's so much power, so much pain, and he forces himself to snap. And next thing you know, his entire right arm is just torched. Right side of his face is torched. His arm is like skinny. He looks like All Might from My Hero with one big arm, one small arm. And he's on the ground, blasted away from the energy. But everybody's trying to figure out if it worked. And then Scott walks out, looks out, and he sees all the more birds flying. And Clint gets a call from his wife. And he hears his phone going off. And as he's walking to it, he sees her picture, and he looks like he's about to cry. And he answers her, and he hears his wife's voice. And as soon as he answers the phone, Thanos' ship comes through the time portal that Nebula opened up. He just immediately blows away their compound. And this is where the most epic of epic just happens. From this point on, the movie's just absolutely insane. Where to start? The compound collapses. Hulk's trying to hold it up with one hand. Rocket's buried under rubble. He can't breathe. War Machine, he had to shred his armor, and his legs don't work anymore because of his spine. Excuse me. He had to free Rocket. Clint has the gauntlet, and he's getting chased by all those weird shoulders on multiple legs that were in the Battle of Wakanda. And so he's running after them. It's messed up. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I left a major part out. How they found Clint. He was in Japan killing Yakuza, looking like Batman, and Natasha found him and told him that they had a chance to get his family back. and he's just like, "Don't give me hope." And she's like, "I wish I could give it to you sooner." But anyway, back to what I was saying. So that's what's going on with them. Present Nebula or future Nebula, however you want to look at it, is still all messed up on Thanos' ship, but she's on the ship that he brought. And Gamora is talking to her, and she's like, "What happens to us? What do we become?" And she explains how she tried to kill Gamora a few times, but Gamora forgave her, and they became friends, and eventually they became sisters. So Gamora decides to help her, and she fills in Gamora on the future. Um, Thanos. Thanos is a monster. He teleports down. He literally sits down and just says, "I'm gonna wait here." And he tells past Nebula, "Go find the gauntlet. Go find the stones. I'm gonna wait." As he's waiting, Thor's watching him. Then Cap and Iron Man roll up to Thor. What's he doing? Just waiting. Thor does the first cool thing he's done all movie, and he calls Stormbreaker and Mjolnir. And the lightning hits him. He gets his armor on. His his new beard like twists into like this cool thing. Still got the gut, but his armor goes over the gut. He still looks pretty ridiculous, but he was ready to go. Lightning in his eyes. The three of them, they charge Thanos, and it's an insane fight scene. Shield bouncing off, blasts, missiles, smacking around. They did something really, really cool where Tony, the back of his armor opens up into like this weird like flower thing, almost like it looks like boosters. But he tells Thor to hit him. Thor hits him with lightning, and he does it. He shoots turns it into a huge blast that he hits Thanos with. But then Thanos gets the upper hand. He starts beating the shit out of all three of them. Um, Thor 1v1s him. You know, he's throwing Mjolnir, throwing Stormbreaker, lightning everywhere, going back and forth. Thanos gets the upper hand again. Starts knocking Thor around. Actually takes Stormbreaker from him and fucking freaking uh, almost kills him with it. And then all it shows is Mjolnir pick up, smack Thanos in the back of the head. Now me, I thought it was Vision. I was like, something they must have brought back Vision. Nope, it was Cap. And the theater went nuts. I lost my mind. Thor not only picked up Mjolnir, I'm sorry, Cap picked up Mjolnir, and it came right back to him. Thor looks at him, and Thor's like, "I knew it." And he's beating him up with the hammer, beating up the shield, throwing the shield, throwing the hammer, bouncing the shield off the hammer to get it back. It was amazing. Smacking down lightning. It was an absolutely amazing scene. Um, but again, Thanos, dude's crazy. Starts beating down on Cap, gets Mjolnir away from him, damn near knocks him out, starts shattering his shield. You know that scene in the trailer where it shows him tighten the shield? By that point, not only did he get his whole face beat down, half the shield's gone. And Thanos just calls a bunch of other ships, and his entire army's there. And Cap just by himself tightens up his shield, picks up the hammer. He's ready to take on Thanos' entire army. And then he gets a call on his comms from Falcon. And Falcon's like, "On your left." Portal opens up. Here comes Falcon. Here comes Winter Soldier. Here comes Spider-Man. And they're like, "What's going on?" And then more portals start opening up. Doctor Strange, Wong, the entire Wakandan army, Black Panther, um, the Valkyries, everybody. They had thousands of soldiers there. Um, Ships from the Nova Corps. Like, it was everybody. Oh, yeah, the Guardians, obviously. Um, and they rushed Thanos' army all together. And they show some more great fight scenes. There was a lot going on. It was kind of hard to keep track of. Uh, Hulk smacking around people with one arm. There's a point where Cap and Thor are beating people up with Stormbreaker and Mjolnir. And they end up grabbing the other, and Thor's just like, "No, you got the small one," and he gives him back Mjolnir. Um, it was insane. But what really got me was Scarlet Witch, because she went straight after Thanos, looked him in the face, and said, "You took everything from me." And he just goes, "I don't even know who you are." And she starts wrecking his face, throwing things at him, blasting him like she ruins him. At this point, Clint comes out with the Infinity Gauntlet, and he's trying to get it. They're trying to figure out what to do with it. And then like Banner says, we gotta send them back to their time, but their time machine's destroyed. Scott's like, we got another time machine over there, in the van. So they find that van. He starts going up to the van. Clint starts getting attacked. Panther shows up, says, "Give me the gauntlet." He starts going. He starts doing, his kinetic blast and whatnot. He gets knocked out. Spider-Man grabs the gauntlet. He's going. He's using his armor to dodge stuff. It's attacking enemies on its own. That was nuts. Scarlet Witch is getting the upper hand on Thanos, so Thanos decides to just blow them away. He basically calls his ships to fire on them, even his own men. Even his generals are like, "What do you do? Why are we doing this?" And they just start blowing everybody away. Well, I guess the Avengers decided to call on the big guns, because while they get all getting blown away, the guns start pointing up, start shooting at the sky. Everybody's like, "What are they shooting at?" I was saying the same thing. I mean, you've got an army of guys trying to beat you on the floor. What's going on? And here comes Captain Marvel from outer space, and she blows right through the ship. And she just starts going back and forth, just destroying the ship until it's done. And then she hits the ground, and she takes on Thanos, and she gives him the work. She ends up finding Peter, crouched under a corner with just a gauntlet, and she takes the gauntlet, and he looks at her at Thanos' arms like, "I don't know how you get through all that." And we get the nice little girl power scene. Valkyrie shows up, Scarlet Witch, um, sorry, T'Challa's sister. Like all the best girls show up, and they all just start wrecking house as Captain Marvel flies through a bunch of dudes. Finally gets to Thanos. They trying to get to the time machine. The time machine gets destroyed. Starts looking downhill. A tidal wave shows up. Doctor Strange has to catch the tidal wave. Thanos finally beats Captain Marvel. He gets the gauntlet. Tony had ran into Doctor Strange between this, and he's like, all the futures you said that there was one that we won. Is this the one? And he's just like, if I tell you what happens, it's not gonna happen. Tony tries to fight. Thanos has finally had enough, and he just knocks everybody out. There's actually one point where Cap's on the ground. He just was bad. Tony sees him get the gauntlet, and Tony looks over at Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange just goes. Tony rushes Thanos, tries to grab the gauntlet off him. Thanos smacks him away, and Thanos is just like, "I'm inevitable," and snaps his fingers, but nothing happens. He looks at the glove. All those Infinity Stones are gone. Just as Iron Man holds up his hand, and this Infinity Stones stake up his hand. They take their spots on his glove, and you just see the power start going up his arm. And he's just like, "And I am Iron Man." Snaps his finger. Big flash. And one by one, Thanos' army turns to dust, leaving Thanos for last. And then he also turns to ashes. But then you see Iron Man. His entire body, right side of his body, is just burned away, and he's dying. This scene got me too. This scene actually brought me to tears. It was bad. He's sitting there, scorched. Pepper, who was also in the fight with her own suit of armor, lands, tries to console him. Peter gets there, he's crying, hugs him. Pepper tells him that we're gonna be alright. I'm assuming she could be talking about herself and her daughter or the rest of the world. So she's like, "We're gonna be alright. Now you can finally rest." And he passes away. The next scene is his memorial service, and everybody's there. Even a character I didn't know who it was. Upon later talking about it, I realized it was the boy from Iron Man 3, whose garage he used to repair his armor. But it had all the Avengers all dressed in black. They were all there in remembrance of Tony. They watched the hologram he recorded before the quantum leap, I guess you can call it, that he had left just in case something happened. He left it for his daughter. Um, last thing he said to her was "I love you 3000," which was something she had said to him, and it was adorable. Um, sorry, it was good, but after that it was they gave Cap the Infinity Stones, and basically he had to go. His job was to go return the stones to their spots in time. They sent him back. They said in 5 seconds he'll be jumping back. At least for them. For him, it'll be a few hours. So they send him. They try to send him back. Nothing happens, and everybody starts freaking out. It's Bruce, Falcon, Winter Soldier, aka Bucky. Um, he also took Mjolnir with him, so he did put Mjolnir back where it's supposed to be. So everybody starts freaking out, and then they look behind them and they see an old man sitting on a bench. Falcon walks over there, and it's Cap. Basically, after returning the stones, he went back to his original time, and he lived out his life. He says that he basically decided to do what Tony told him to do and get a life, and he lived a beautiful life. Um, and Falcon said, you deserved it after everything you did. I just hate the fact that I'm going to live in a world without Captain America. And then he pulls out a bag, and the bag was his shield, and he gives the shield to Falcon, which is something right out of the comic books. Falcon takes his place as Captain America, and he tells Cap, feels like it's somebody else's. Like, you'll get used to it. You earned it. He shakes his hand, and he sees the Cap had a wedding ring. He's like, "You gonna tell me about her?" He's like, "No, I don't think I am." And then the last scene of the movie is it cuts to a flashback of Cap finally dancing with Peg, and I guess they close it out with a happy ending. Granted, we lost Iron Man and now Captain America, but it chalks up to a win. The movie was absolutely beautiful. Um, I hear rumors that the Russo brothers aren't going to make any more, so I don't know how that's going to go as far as writing. But it was a great movie. I would definitely go watch it again. I might go watch it, this week. But I recommend it to everybody who watches this video. And if you stuck around this long, I hope you like me talking about it. Yeah. So I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye.